How to estimate your development effort. In this video, you will learn about how to best estimate your development effort. The video is divided into the following topics: development approach, the RISE-FW development categories, development estimation model. So let's first look at the development approach. So the development approach when we are looking at an SAP project is that we have a category which is new development. So this is development of new customizations based on the gap analysis that you completed during your business blueprint. And we have a second category, which is modify existing development. And this is modification of an existing customization based on the gap analysis, if such exists. So if you are installing SAP for the very first time, you will not have any existing developments. Whereas if you are implementing a new version of SAP, upgrading, or you are changing your solution, that could be that you are consolidating several systems into one, you're redesigning, whatever it might be, you are doing with your existing SAP component, transforming it into something else. In that case, you might have existing developments, and those developments you should, of course, should reuse if possible. Now, the common notifier here is that it's all based on the gap analysis. So the gap analysis will determine what the requirements are, and the gap analysis will match those requirements to either the existing solution or to a standard SAP process, depending on what your specific project scenario is. So we have two major development categories: new development and modify of an existing. Now, that's the categories. So we have different type of development. So we have what we call RISE-FW. So this is 6 type of development. So we have report, we have interface, conversion, enhancement, form, and workflow. So let's first look at the report. So a report is to be developed as a standard. SAP reports cannot fulfill specific requirements. That can be either to layout or content of the specific report. In those cases, you have to develop a customized report, and there's different tools for developing a report. Some is done by the functional, such as Report Painter. Others are done by the ABAP, the technical development team, using the ABAP language, which could be an ABAP developed program. Second category is interface. Interface is to be developed to integrate the SAP solution with other SAP systems, or it can even be non-SAP systems. So sometimes interfaces are also referred to as enhancement programs. So an interface program is basically a program that's running, and it allows you to either send or receive certain data, and it do some checking and as part of processing that data. When we're talking about development in SAP, you should keep all your interfaces in the category I, interface, even though it might be technically an enhancement program. Conversion developments are for developing conversion programs for either loading or extracting data. It can be extracting data from SAP, it can be loading data into SAP. Now, conversion programs can be either temporary, that means that you are only using it during the project, like a one-time conversion as part of you're getting your system ready and you're going live with your system, or it can be a more permanent solution, which could be that this is a tool that is helping the business users to automate something or make their life more automated or flexible by allowing them to mass upload certain things or mass change data. Either way, the development will be the same. It will be a transaction code assigned. It has to be documented, and it has to, of course, also be documented how it's going to be used, temporary or long-term. Fourth category is enhancement. So enhancement programs are programs that adds additional functionality to what SAP already provides. It can be the existing solution, or it can be to the standard SAP software. This is a program that could, for example, be running in the background automated certain steps that is in the SAP process is otherwise done manually by the users, and in this case it's automated, or it could be that it's doing certain logical checks that you only allow to do certain transaction if certain logic is fulfilled, or even it can be that it's pre-filled some fields with, again, based on some logic. So this is functionalities that SAP do not have, and therefore you need a customized program. Forms is, as it says, this is development that to allow for data to be presented in a very specific format, either on the screen for display, or it can be a printed form for fulfilling government regulation, or even some pre-printed stationery that you're using in your business. And therefore you need to make sure that it comes out of SAP exactly that way. It can also be labels if it's business warehouse, barcodes, etc. Last one is the W category, which is workflow. So workflow development is mainly for automating the process through a workflow. Now, some SAP modules has built-in workflow capabilities, some don't. So some modules you can actually, this will be more of a configuration, whereas others you need a technical developer to set up the actual workflow. So these 6 categories are what we call the RISE FW. And in some projects you will not have the workflow, it is simply called RISE. But in the ASAP methodology, you have the workflow included as that completes the development categories. So this is a very important dimension, combined with the 2 dimensions we discussed before, new or modify. So if we then try a look at the development estimation model. So if we first plot in the different development categories or types of development, and we plot it in terms of either modifying or new development, we have a third factor, and that is the complexity factor. So complexity is where you are estimating your effort. And complexity, the scale that I normally use, and I find that is very user-friendly and easy to use, is a 4-scale complexity, or 4-step complexity scale, which is low, medium, high, and very high. You can make this more graduate, and you can make it, I've seen projects that even have 10 different complexities. Now, the more complicated you make it, the more complicated it will be for you to manage it. And no matter how detailed you make the scale, I've always seen on project that there is a discussion on the complexity. Why is it high? Why is it low? Why is it medium? So once you have your scale determined, you need to put in the definitions. So all of this goes into a development matrix, and we have a development estimation matrix that can be downloaded for you as part of this course. Now, one thing on this is that actually when you talk about complexity, modifying existing development, you should not have any very high. New developments, yes, it goes the full scale, but if it's a modify existing development, you might have high or very high, but then you really should carefully look at, is this so much of a modification that I actually want to start from scratch? And in many cases that's what I recommend. So unless it's low, medium, don't go there. The benefit of trying to understand an existing program and modifying it with the risk that something that worked before doesn't work now, and the risk that if the previous program was not very well documented, your developer will have to do a lot of reverse engineering. Often it's easier to start from scratch, perhaps cut and paste some of the code or some of the documentation as needed, but start from scratch, and don't try to patch an existing program and make it increase the complexity a lot into a very complicated development. That would be my recommendation. Now, in the estimation matrix that you can download, you will see that we have the very high and high effort in for both categories, existing development and new development. But my recommendation is don't use the high and very high in the modify existing development, but go for the new development. Okay, so let's look at the development estimation model. So when you are doing your estimate, you should and you must include 5 key activities. functional specification, technical specification, the development of itself, the development of the code itself, technical unit test, and system integration test. So the first two is preparation. This is where you are documenting the specification for both the functional requirements and the technical requirements. And then you go into the actual coding, where you are producing and creating the program before you get to the test phase, and you need to make sure there is both a technical test as well as a functional test. Don't forget the effort for sign-off of documentation, because there is a number of documentations that needs to be produced. So in the beginning it is functional specification, then it goes into technical specification, and technical specification you will need to update later as well, and then you go into the whole testing phase, which is where you do the script and you do the test reports. So there's a lot of documents, and it takes time both for creating the documents, quality assurance of the documents, as well as the sign-off of the document. Sign-off is often underestimated, and it often takes much longer time than anticipated. Now, one thing here is, we mentioned it in the previous course as well, do not start your development without the functional specification documents are signed off. You can do preparation, but do not start your technical development effort unless you get the functional specification signed off. Now, this is a very hard thing to achieve, and it requires a lot of discipline, but it is discipline and effort well spent, because what you risk by not doing this is you risk that when you get to your testing, perhaps not the unit test or the system testing, but perhaps when you get to the user acceptance test, you will not get the sign off, and now you suddenly have to go back in the development life cycle and redo your specs, redo your development. And if it's a small modification, the form layout, you want to adjust it a little bit, the look and feel, not a problem. But if it's enhancement program or interfaces, or even complicated reports, it can be a complete rewrite. So get your functional specification documents signed off. Easier said than done, but it is something that you need to address early on to avoid problems later. Now, when you are doing your estimates, you should split your estimate into functional and technical effort, as the cost of these resources, as well as the time and availability, is very different. So you should split it into minimum two categories, which is functional effort and technical development effort. And then you might have a third category, which is more supporting. You might have testers or documentation members that is helping you to complete all the documents. So this color coding matches with the different phases. You see the yellow and the gray. And when you go into the estimation matrix, and here is a screenshot from the file that you can download. Example, here is the report, where you see on the top a new development. So you have a report, you have two categories. Either it's an ABAP report, which is requires technical effort, or it's a report painted drill down report, which actually is done by the functional team. So you'll see here that actually there is no technical effort here. It is blank, because this is a functional effort, and you'll see that it's blank here, and it's only the functional effort. Whereas here you have the technical effort included with the functional effort. So this is a very easy to use format, and as you can also see that if you have a modification of a report versus a new report, the effort is very different. So the same category, but the effort is very different. So this is a way of having a matrix that can easily give everyone the same understanding for how much effort a development takes. Now, some projects you include testing, some you don't. It's up to the contract, but for you, for the timeline and for the planning, you must ensure you have all these 5 categories included in your estimate, one way or the other. So this file, as mentioned, is available for download to support you, and you can start using it immediately on your project. So by that, let's do a summary. So after completing this video, you should now have a good understanding of the different types of developments and how to estimate the development effort for the project.